The gentleman from Hanover, Mr. Peace.
Mr. Speaker, I move the committee substitute.
Questions on adoption of the committee substitute. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Substitutes agreed to. Gentleman from Hanover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, much has been made over this legislation during the course of this General Assembly period, but what it does, it presents a pretty straightforward policy decision that reaffirms what a majority of colleges, public colleges, and universities in Virginia already maintain as their policy with respect to denying enrollment to those individuals who are here without documentation. When this bill was introduced in another form in 2008, it received broad bipartisan support. And during that process, the survey was conducted that discovered that, in fact, the majority, if not the supermajority of public colleges and universities maintain such a policy. Such a survey was conducted again in December and reaffirmed that. And I'll just use, for example, University of Virginia George Mason, stating the universities do not currently enroll any undocumented or illegal immigrants. Immigration status is blind insofar as admissions processes and only requires those applicants who are accepted and choose to matriculate to present proof of immigration status. The universities will not allow an undocumented student to enroll. I did listen to a lot of the college universities. The bill was, as introduced, dealt with admissions. They said that that was a great burden on them in terms of trying to filter all of those admissions applications. They would have preferred enrollment. There was no representative of the university or college system there in opposition to this bill in Friday Courts Committee because of that. So the bill simply states that if you are a public college or university, that you will have a written policy or regulation regarding the denial of enrollment to those who are here without documentation. The reason why this bill is back again is in part because since that time in 2008, we've had a DREAM Act proposed in Congress that would use our public colleges and universities as naturalization centers or amnesty centers here in the Commonwealth, and we had that notion reaffirmed by the President in his State of the Union address. I think it's a simple policy matter that you either affirm and uphold what our public colleges and universities are currently doing, or you do not, and you support the federal initiatives. Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be engrossed and pass to its third reading.
Gentleman from Alexandria, Mr. Evan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking to the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
I'm proud to represent one of the most diverse parts of Virginia. People in my districts come from more than 120 nations and speak 90 languages. I find it alarming that we're once again considering a slate of bills that will intimidate and exclude immigrants. Immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are a vital part of our communities and Virginia's economy. This bill and others seek to make up for the failure of the federal government to enact comprehensive education reform, or immigration reform, I should say. I'd like to tell you about a young woman. She was the valedictorian of her high school. Under this bill, she would be denied the ability to apply to attend one of our colleges or universities should they accept applications. Regardless of how old she was when she was brought to this country, she could not attend. Regardless of whether or not her parents had paid Virginia taxes, she could not attend. Regardless of the fact that her higher tuition rate, in fact, would subsidize other Virginia students, she could not attend. Regardless of whether she has any memory of her native country or has ever spoken the language of that nation, she could not attend. Regardless of whether her younger siblings would be able to attend Virginia colleges and universities, she could not attend. Similar circumstances would affect thousands of other young people. By excluding them from higher learning, we would offer them only the streets as an alternative, working as a day laborer, or even worse, accepting a gang's invitation. This bill seeks to unjustly punish children for the actions of their parents, and all Virginians would suffer as a result. When we deny college admission to some of Virginia's best and brightest students, we deny them the surest path to becoming productive workers and fully integrated members of society. Let there be no doubt about it, these students actually enhance the university environment and are contributors to the Commonwealth. Please join me against engrossment today and against passage tomorrow.
Gentleman from Alexandria, Mr. England.
Mr. Speaker, speaking to the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you'll reject this bill. The gentleman from Enrico I'm sorry, Hanover, I apologize. The gentleman from Hanover is a parent, as am I, and he and I both know that our young children go where we as parents determine, not where they decide to go. And if his family or my family decided to move to another state or even to another country, our children would have no choice but to come with us. I know that's the case in my household, and I would hazard to guess it's the case in his and in all of our households. And so what we're doing with this legislation is we're telling children who are in this country through no fault of their own, through no decision of their own, brought here by parents, in many cases when the children were at a very young age, brought here with no say in the matter, we're telling those children that not only can they not attend our institutions of higher learning as out-of-state students, but they can't attend at all, even if they're willing to pay out-of-state tuition. Now, these are children in many cases who, in every meaningful way, are as American as my son and as your children. These are children who, in many cases, have gone through the entire Virginia public school system, K through 12. They speak English. They listen to the same music that other children listen to. They are part of the same culture. In every meaningful way, these children are Americans except for one, and that is documentation. And what happens if we tell them that they can't attend colleges and universities? Well, we have other legislation that this body's passed in the past and that is before us today requiring employers not to hire them. So we're telling these children, well, you can't work, you can't go to school, it doesn't matter that you're basically American. And we wonder why these communities suffer from poverty. We wonder why gangs recruit in neighborhoods where these children live. Ladies and gentlemen, not only is this, I would say, inhumane and mean-spirited, not only is this visiting the sins of the father on the son, but this is short-sighted for us as a Commonwealth because the entire community suffers when we cut off opportunity for these children who, in every meaningful way, are as American as you and I. So please, for all of those reasons, vote against this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Serval.
Will my good friend from Hanover rise for question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I will yield.
Gentleman yields.
I've been reading a lot in the I've been reading in the paper that the United States military has been offering a new program to author a path to citizenship for its veterans, for people who are not legally here to become a citizen if they register with the United States military. And I've also noticed this session that my friend and fellow freshman from Virginia Beach offered a bill to give, to make sure we can give in-state tuition to the spouses of veterans. And I want to say I also remember a bill about in-state tuition to veterans. And it was my question is whether it was the gentleman's intention to prohibit a veteran or the spouse of a veteran from getting in-state tuition or being able to enroll with this bill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure it references anything about military or veterans in this bill. It speaks to people who are not citizens. And remarking on a comment that was made by another gentleman friend from Northern Virginia, I'm not sure what it means to be basically American. I think you're either American or you're not. I can understand people wanting to come to this country. But what this bill seeks to do is simply to codify what is existing practice. These aren't at-risk kids, and the hyperbole about them joining a gang is just way off base. I mean, if they're in a university or college that doesn't have a policy, they're paying $30,000, $35,000 to go there. They're not at risk, and I'd rather them go to the University of North Carolina and pay that out-of-state rate. And frankly, if federal policy were to change, how many more people would we see coming to this state, this Commonwealth, and availing themselves of these schools? I spoke to Delegate Hugo, who has a bill every year about opening up the doors to Virginians for our college universities, and I support that. This bill is nothing different than those measures to try to do so.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
I've got a fellow on the floor right now. Gentleman Fairfax, Mr. Serval.
No, I thank the gentleman.
I beg your pardon?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman from Fairfax answer a
The
question?
gentleman from Manassas, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Speaker,
No.
will the Speaker, I rise to ask the gentleman from Fairfax a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Speaker, was the gentleman from Fairfax comparing the selfless sacrifice and service of people entering our military to that of the privilege and benefit of those going to our universities?
Mr. Speaker, no, what I was pointing out is that the military has established a policy of trying to welcome these people in to our country by providing them a pathway to citizenship. And those people frequently have spouses and they have children. This body, just this year, has passed legislation to grant in-state tuition to make sure we get in-state tuition to the spouses of veterans. And I think this bill is in conflict with the bills we've also passed this year. I would also note, Mr. Speaker, that it's my understanding that the first Marine that was killed in Iraq was undocumented. You don't have to be legally here to join the United States military. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of these conflicting policies that we're passing this session. I think it's important that we be clear.
Mr. Speaker, will he answer a further question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Speaker, is the gentleman from Fairfax not aware that you must be legally present in the country? Yes, you can be an immigrant, but you must be legally present in the country to enlist in our military. And yes, the military then does provide a pathway to citizenship?
Mr. Speaker, I will answer. I stand corrected. I agree that you have to at least have a visa. You have to be legally present to enlist. I agree with the gentleman, and I apologize if I stated otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and speak to the bill when appropriate.
Gentleman Shandoah, Mr. Gilbert.
Speaking to the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, no song lyrics this time, I promise. This is a serious subject. We had the pleasure of hearing from a young woman the other day in the Courts Committee who was undocumented, who appeared by all indications to be very bright. Nobody blames young men and women like her for the situation in which they find themselves, being brought here at a young age. I do believe in personal responsibility, Mr. Speaker. I also believe that parents must take personal responsibility for the bad decisions they make for their children. And as much as some in this body would like to make the patron of this bill and those who support this legislation appear to be mean and heartless, it is not us, Mr. Speaker, who put these children in this position. This was done through a personal choice of parents who chose to put their children in a position that may have negative implications for them someday. The point of this bill, Mr. Speaker, and so much of what we have before us today in the field of immigration is that we have a broken system of immigration in this country. Again and again at the state level, we are called upon to pay for the results of this broken system, whether it's in the area of health care, corrections, public safety, education, on and on, Mr. Speaker, social services, you name it. The point of this broken system being paid for by Virginians is that we have, as you all know, every year we have to argue over the limited number of resources we have in the state of Virginia. And the limited resources we have mean that not every Virginia child is going to get admitted to a Virginia institution of higher learning. And what the other side is asking us to do is reserve some spots for children who are not even present in the country legally, and who, when they graduate from one of these fine institutions, will not even be able to get a job. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have limited resources. We need to make sure our limited resources are available to our citizens and those who are here legally. And I would ask the body to engross this bill and pass it on to its third reading.
Gentleman from Powhatan, Mr. Ware.
Mr. Speaker, I move the pending question.
Gentleman from Powhatan, Mr. Ware, moves the pending question. Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Pending question is called for. The pending question is, shall the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Bill is engrossed and passed to its third reading.